Welcome back. You're still watching Politics Tonight, digging beyond the headlines. And now to our interview with the first guest of the day. I am joined by the former acting national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Hilliard Etta, for discussion on the June 12 and Nigeria's democratic progress. Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. Now, let's start with the June 12 Democracy Day celebration. What can you tell us about Abiola, the symbol of June 12?
Let me start by congratulating all lovers of democracy in Nigeria for the celebration of the Day of Choice. To come to MK Abiola is to speak of an icon of our democracy. I remember as a young lad, I also participated in the struggle for the realization of the June 12th imbroglio to de-annul the elections. But let me say that what we are enjoying today as a democracy in Nigeria was watered by MKO Abiola. So it is quite surreal that we are here to celebrate such an icon and also celebrate our choice of the kind of governance that we have chosen for ourselves, which is democracy, the participation of all in the choices that we make and the agenda that we set for our country. It is as it should be because the more you have people participate in the conduct of their affairs, the better for everyone. So democracy today is taking root in Nigeria, but at all times we must look back and give recognition and respect to those who led their lives for us to see and enjoy what we have today.
So what lasting memory can you share with us about that day in 1993?
It was June 12th of 1993 was quite a day. I remember that day very vividly, and a lot of us had trooped out to vote for our preferred candidates. The annulment of the election was a shock to millions of Nigerians who had seen one of the best processes, one of the best electoral processes ever in the history of Nigeria, truncated by a few men in uniform. It was shocking, as it was startling, because there was no justifiable reason for the annulment of that election. But you know, God rules in the affairs of men. I believe that God in His infinite mercy, orchestrated events so that Nigeria will be where it is today. In 2023, when we had the election, I had a reflection, especially when my party had a Muslim ticket. I had a reflection of what transpired in 1993 and how far we have gone back, how far we have regressed, how far we have retrogressed. Because I remember that 30 years ago, that Nigerians took out disregarding their religious and ethnic affiliations to vote for MKO Abiola, who was a Muslim and who had Ambassador Babagana Kigibe as a Muslim as the running mate. There was no hula balo, there was no rancor and crisis of the magnitude that we saw in 2023. That was for me a defining moment of how far we have gone back and how far we would have gone ahead if the military had not annulled that election. If 30 years ago, Nigerians were able to push back on certain primordial instincts of religion and instincts of ethnic affiliations, to cast their vote for that ticket. I believe that if that ticket had been sustained, if the victory of MK Abiola had been sustained, that Nigeria would have been better for it. Today, our democracy would have been very well entrenched in such a manner that some of the fault lines that we have in Nigeria today would have been dealt with within this period that has passed. But having said so, we cannot lose hope that what happened 30 years ago can indeed happen in Nigeria. Happened in Nigeria in 2023, even though a few had some concerns, or a few people had some concerns, but it happened again in 2023. Now, what that tells me is that perhaps it is God's way of telling us in Nigeria that there is a renewed hope, that there is a reason for us to start all over again on a clean slate in such in a manner that will engender development, peace and unity and cohesion in the country.
30 years since that election, regarded as the freest and fairest in the history of this country. How did we get to that watershed moment? Mr. Issa, did you get my question? It's been 30 years since an election regarded as the freest and fairest in the history of this country. How did we get to that watershed moment?
It had, just like it happened in 2023, it had to do with the personality of the presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party at the time, who was Bashirun MKO Abiola. I think it was just about his personality. I think Nigerians saw in him a man who could carry their aspirations so seamlessly and so easily that every Nigerian, remember that his campaign was predicated on farewell to poverty. And of course, almost every family in Nigeria can identify with poverty and the need to bid farewell to it. So most Nigerians and most families and most people at the time identified with that campaign and were ready to be on the side of the man who himself embodied the very principle of farewell to poverty. Remember that in his own personal history and personal trajectory, that the man told a Nigerian story that resonated with other Nigerians, a man who came from very humble beginnings, very poverty-stricken beginning, and excelled in life. It was truly a Nigerian story that resonated in almost all the homes in Nigeria and almost all the political actors in Nigeria in such a manner that I remember that when he visited my state, the governor of my state at the time, I think was of the NRC, but he couldn't stop people. He tried as much as he could. He couldn't stop people from trooping out in their numbers to receive MKO Abiola. So it was basically, he had a magnetic, charismatic personality. That is number one. Number two, his story resonated with almost every Nigerian. And again, time was ripe at the time to have a president of that kind. And so one was not surprised at the level of support that the man enjoyed at the time.
That have been said, how significant is June 12 in Nigeria's political history?
I assess June 12th.
How significant is June 12 in Nigeria's political history?
Well, if I get you correctly, where do I situate June 12 in the Nigerian political history? It is not for nothing that today has been selected as a holiday in Nigeria to celebrate the very foundations of the principles of choice, which is democracy. June 12 was a landmark, an epochal, a watershed, very historical political situation that happened in our country, and it can never go uncelebrated. Now, it is the truth that much more should be done in terms of celebrating icons, and much as we like to call our leaders out, I believe that we also must have the temperament and the capacity to also celebrate icons and those who do a lot in the to engender or to help progress the Nigerian story. So June 12 is one of those days that an icon is celebrated, and our democracy is also celebrated. I think that history should return to our schools so that our generations after us will learn of what transpired on June 12, 1993. It is important that the younger generation or generations of Nigerians get to know exactly what happened on that day, the contributions of Abiodun and Abiola, and what the military junta at that time did to truncate democracy in Nigeria. We must all have all of this information so that when we make commentaries and when we take positions, we do them from the position of information. For history not to be part of our curriculum is a disservice not just to us but to our children.
All right. President Buhari did what other presidents before him could not do by honoring late MKO Abiola and June 12. For you, how significant is what he did?
I was there. At the time I was in the National Working Committee, and we were invited to the Aso Villa, where the president decided to do what was very unpopular with his predecessors, which is to recognize the role of Chief MKO Abiola in the democracy that we are enjoying today. I must give kudos to the president for having the courage to do so. I must also say that at the time that the struggle for the de-annulment of that election was on in Nigeria, there was an attempt for people to use ethnicity to divide Nigerians. A lot was said. A lot who participated on the struggle, on the side of the struggle and against the struggle, were completely dichotomized on the basis of where they came from. From where the former president is from, it was seen as if the people in the north were against the realization of June 12. So for him to have done that is to have gone against the grain. That's number one. Number two, to have the courage to recognize those who have contributed to the making of Nigeria before him, because by doing so, he also has laid a foundation for people who will come after him to recognize whether he did well for Nigeria or not. And this is how it should be. This is how it should be. I for one, believe that Nigerians should have the capacity and the courage to call out leaders to be accountable on one hand. And on the other hand, if leaders have done what is expected of them, if leaders have come to progress the idea, the enterprise of Nigeria, then they should also be accorded their accolades. They should also be celebrated. And Chief MKO Abiola is celebrated today. I believe that other leaders will be celebrated in future, depending on their sacrifices to project Nigeria.
still talking about celebration. I mean, earlier today in his Democracy Day speech, President Tinubu paid tribute to MK Abiola's contribution to Nigeria's democracy. But how best do you think Abiola should be remembered? And have we immortalized him enough?
You cannot say that what we have done is enough. We can do more. But what we have also done is not bad. It's not bad. I think the National Stadium is named after him. Today is celebrated because of him, and other things. I think he has other national institutions named after him. What I think should be done, really, is that our history books in our schools should record the happenstances, the history of June 12th, and should put it in a nationalistic and patriotic perspective for the younger ones to learn. The younger ones must learn that it is a good thing. It is a rewarding thing for you to sacrifice for your country. That is what Basharun Mko Abiola did. He sacrificed for Nigeria. That should never be made. We should never lose that fact, even in our educational process. Our children must learn that this democracy that we are enjoying, that there were people who paid the supreme sacrifice, and one of those persons is the iconic Basharun Mko Abiola. So I will recommend very strongly that if history as a subject has not been returned to our curriculum or our curricula, that it should be done immediately, so that Nigeria will have the people who understand the history, the politics, and the policies of Nigeria in the younger generation. That, for me, is what we can do for Mko Abiola. His memory should never be lost simply because of time. Because of time. If you ask our younger generations today, a lot of them do not even know about the person of Basharun Mko Abiola. And that is not good enough. That is not good enough. I remember that when we were in primary school and in secondary school, we were taught how Nigeria got her independence and those who fought for this independence, the various political parties, the various constitutional conferences that they had both in Nigeria and in UK. Of course, this helped us to form some level of also have some knowledge about how our country came into being. We were taught about the amalgamation, we were taught about all manner of things. And it will inform you as to how your country came to be. Now, to have removed history from our school system is to do very serious damage to the process of knowledge to the younger generations. So this, I believe, has to be restored so that these young ones will know about the sacrifices that Basharun Mko Abiola made for Project Nigeria.
All right. Tonight we're discussing June 12 and Nigeria's democratic progress, and I have with me former acting national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Hilliard Etta. We'll take a break now, and when we come back, we will talk about the biggest lessons of this remarkable day. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Politics Tonight, digging beyond the headlines. And I have Hilliard Etta, former acting national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, APC. Tonight we're discussing June 12 and Nigeria's democratic progress. All right, Mr. Etta, let me ask you, what do you consider as the biggest lessons of June 12?
that part. I didn't get the question.
What would you consider as the biggest lessons of June 12?
Well, democracy is difficult. The very fact that people have different opinions, different perspectives to issues, and to come together as a nation, it is very, very difficult. And in most cases, it is so difficult and so frustrating that a lot of people ask for, they clamor for the military to come and restore order. I dare to say that our history has shown us that the military has no business in governance. For some of us who are old enough to know, for some of us who were in Nigeria during the military interregnum, we know that it is not the place of the military to be in charge of democratic institutions, because the military is not structured to lead that way. And when they come, they destroy all the institutions and all the processes that will allow for different opinions and different perspectives. And, because theirs is a command structure, it is completely antithetical to the democratic structures, even as we have it today. So the greatest lesson of that time is not to even begin to think that we should have a government that will not allow for popular participation in the building of the country, in the building of the polity, the policies, and the peoples of Nigeria. So that for me was the biggest, because when the election, just like the elections of 1993, was not disputed by the other parties. Okay, maybe, but not in a manner as to have truncated that democracy. A few strong men in uniform decided that they would not have a Bashirun, MKO, Abiola as the president of Nigeria. And that was it. We cannot begin to have that kind of situation where a few people will sit in judgment over our own aspirations or against our own aspirations. And so when people are frustrated in politics, when people are frustrated in democracy, they begin to clamor for soldiers to come in, as we have seen it in some countries around us in West Africa. It is, the building of an egalitarian society takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of frustrating situations. You must be large-hearted enough to accommodate differing views, divergent views, those things that do not meet your acceptance or your expectations. You have to be able to tolerate it to be a Democrat. You have to be able to tolerate it that the person that you supported did not win an election. You have to be able to tolerate it that the people rejected you in the polls. These are some of the things that we have to learn. We have to learn. If we imbibe these ideals of knowing that the ultimate decider, the ultimate umpire, the ultimate referee in our political contestations are the people of Nigeria. And if they say, look, we do not want you, you have to accept that verdict. These are some of the things that will make some people to clamor, oh, let us have the military come back, let us have the military come back. I believe that we have had 20 years, about 20 years of democracy now. And it is far better, far ennobling than the number of years that we had the military. The military is a wonderful organization, but the military is structured to defend the territorial integrity of a given sovereignty, a given society. It is not structured to lead democratically. This, for me, is a lesson that we have to learn, and we must know we have to be able to tolerate each other, tolerate the eccentricities of another, the excesses of another, and we will be good. Nigeria will be good. Nigeria will be good.
Then, so,
and I must say that 30 years after...
Please go ahead.
I must say that 30 years after 1993, we now have a leader. 30 years after. It is very historical that 30 years after, 3 decades after 1993, we now have another iconic leader who is the president of our country. And in less than a month, we have seen the kind of strides, the kind of progress that we, the progressive, have always hoped for in our leaders. And for us who know a little about the things that he has for Nigeria, we can only tell Nigerians that after 100 days in office, Nigerians will be overwhelmed by the sheer effrontery of this president to break new grounds. The sheer effrontery of this president to establish new vistas, areas that Nigeria had hitherto thought were impossible, is going to be broken by this president. We couldn't have had a better replacement for MKO Abiola. 30 years after, we could not have had a better replacement than President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I am indeed very glad, and I want to thank the Almighty Father for blessing this country with the kind of president that we have today, 30 years after the June 12 imbroglio.
Fantastic. So looking at where we're coming from and where we are as a nation, how will you describe Nigeria's political future?
Get that?
How will you describe Nigeria's political future?
It is bright. Oh, it is bright. You know, the greatness of Nigeria is imminent. What was lacking before now was the kind of leader who understood the place of Nigeria in the Committee of Nations, the place of Nigeria in the life of an average black man, the place of Nigeria in the world. This president understands it. And so, just like we have excelled in music, just like we have excelled in films, just like we have excelled in literature, today, I can guarantee you that we are going to excel in leadership. And that was what was missing, the missing link to development, the missing link to the kind of development that the world had expected Nigeria to have attained long before now. This president is that link. And Nigerians will be glad that in the year 2023, the God Almighty orchestrated that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu became the president of Nigeria. So, the future of Nigeria is very bright. It is bright in education. It is bright in industry. It is bright in entertainment. It is bright even in foreign affairs. The future of Nigeria is bright all round.
All right.
For those who consider to japa, if I may use a word in the parlance of the youths of today, please reconsider, because we are indeed living in an interesting time. This president will make you regret leaving Nigeria, for we are going to unleash the energies of our youth and the wisdom of our old to create a Nigeria of our dreams. The only thing all of us will say to Mr. President today, we'll say him, Oga, all our dreams are and our aspirations are in your hands, in your very capable hands. Please do that which you have planned. Do continue in the path that you have created. For we believe that the Nigeria of our dreams is apace.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mr. Eten. Now let's quickly go to other topical issues. I mean, in just a few hours, the 10th National Assembly will be inaugurated. What are your sincere expectations?
That distinguished Senator Godswill Akpabio will be elected President of the 10th Senate. I expect that Senator Barrow will be elected Deputy Senate President. I also expect that Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas will be elected Speaker of the House of Representatives, and that Right Honorable Benjamin Kalu will be elected as Deputy Speaker of the House. This is as it should be, because this is the team that has been selected by my party and my president to partner with the president so that Nigerians will have a renewed hope. Now, there are others who are contesting in complete disregard, discountenancing the position of the party and that of the president. My position is like this. If the other person that is running for the presidency of the Senate, Governor Yari, should take a deep breath and do a re-evaluation of his political trajectory in the recent past. He should remember his role in being against the directives of the party in 2019 election that led the APC in losing Zamfara. It has become almost a culture now to Governor Yari that wherever the position of the party is, he takes a different position against the party. That is number one. Number two, Governor Yari should also juxtapose his 8 years as governor of Zamfara State and juxtapose it with the 8 years of the governorship of Akpabio, and should recognize capacity, talent, and competence when he sees one. There are people who tell us almost on a daily basis that the Senate should be allowed to handle its own affairs, that no one should interfere in the process of the election of the leaders of the Senate. All of us know, the 200 or so million of Nigerians know, that tomorrow only 109 people will cast their votes. And nobody is going to circumvent those votes. Nobody is saying that after they would have voted, that Nigerians will annul those votes. That is not what we are saying. But they must remember, there are two issues that they must always remember. Number one, they were elected by these 200 million Nigerians. And so they cannot say that they will not listen to these 200 million Nigerians. That's number one. Number two, they were also given tickets of a political party. For those who belong to my party that has a majority in both houses, they should know that the ticket for them to become senators was given to them by a political party. And they must listen to that political party. Now, tomorrow they are going to have the election, and only 109 of them in the Senate and 360 of them in the House of Reps will cast their ballots. But they should know that they should not take the supposed independence of the National Assembly to its extreme, because the National Assembly and the executive, both elected on the platform of the APC, are partners in progress. They are not in opposition. They are partners in progress. And so if the president says, look, gentlemen, please, and this president has not said so arrogantly, he has said so in humility. He said, gentlemen, please, these are the kind of people that I would like to work with, so that we can have a renewed hope in Nigeria, so that we can take our mandate to the nooks and crannies of Nigeria. And you, as a party man, decide to stand against the president. Of course, you know, I've been a party administrator all my life. I know that there are consequences. There are consequences. So other parties can do whatever they like. It is in their business to do so. It is in their business to be an opposition to us. But members of our party cannot be in opposition to the party that gave them tickets to go to the National Assembly. So I would like to urge all members of our party and those who sympathize with the position of the APC that please, as you go tomorrow, remember the uncommon transformer of Akwa Ibom, who took Akwa Ibom from the backwaters of development to one of the fastest growing economies, state economies in Nigeria today. That if he was able to do that in Akwa Ibom, he's able to do it at the national level. Also understand that the president and commander-in-chief of the armed forces is of the APC, and the Senate presidency must remain in the APC. And it must be the one that has the support of both the APC as a party and the president. Please understand this. Let not our personal ambitions becloud our sense of identity of our party. I would also appeal to Governor Yari that it is important to have personal aspiration. But you must also know, Governor Yari, that you belong to a political party. From the APP to the APC, those parties have been very kind to you. Those parties have been extremely very kind to you. This is not the time for you to play the spoilers game. I want to appeal to the 109 senators that are going into the chambers, the hallowed chambers of the National Assembly tomorrow, to vote wisely and vote Senator Godswill Obotakpabio. Let us have him, not because I'm a Southerner, not because he is my friend, but because I know before the president would have cast his lot on him, this particular president, this headhunter of record, knows that Godswill Obotakpabio has the capacity, the propensity, the temperament for that office. We will be glad that we did so. We will be glad that we did so. Thank you.
All right, so let me also ask, in the absence of consensus before Tuesday, Mr. Ayeta, do you think throwing the contest open for aspirants as the best option?
The process of election is within the purview of the rules of the Senate and the rules of the House of Representatives. We who are not members can only be involved at the periphery of it. We cannot be involved within the nitty-gritty of the electoral process in the hallowed chambers of the National Assembly. So we can only speculate. The rules they made, and we believe that it will be transparent, it will be free, and it will be fair. Regardless of what we say, whatever becomes the consequence of that process will be accepted by all of us, both in the party and in Nigeria generally.
It's very important to ask this question. Why has it become hard for APC to put its house in order regarding getting support for the choice of the party for the leadership positions?
I had earlier told you that democracy is difficult. When you have different perspectives and different positions, sometimes it could be possible for you to create a consensus or work for and have a consensus. Some other times you may not be that lucky. When people are entrenched in their positions, it becomes difficult for you to have a consensus. So it is not as if there is no unity and cohesion in the APC. It is as it should be. It's politics, and this is the difference between democracy and other forms of government. It is what has made democracy the preferred kind of process of governance. So it does not therefore mean that there is any hiccup in the party, that there is any factionalization and all of that. We in the APC are very happy that regardless of the teething problems we have here and there over time, we have been able to build a very cohesive, very united house as a political party. Not unlike our opponent, the PDP, that is always washing its dirty linen in the public. We have been able to do so, and I believe that with this president, a very progressive-minded president at that he will do a lot in terms of bringing the party together. One of the things that is very, very attractive about President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is his uncanny ability to bring people together. And a political party is an organization that is peopled by different characters, people from different milieux, people from different worldviews and cosmology. And so you put all of this together. You need a leader that has the capacity to cement the cracks accentuated by differences in.
Thank you very much for your contribution on the program today. I've been speaking with Hilliard Etta, former acting national chairman of the All Progressives Congress. Thank you very much for your robust contribution on Politics Tonight. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure having you. And thank you very much for watching. That marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight. But the conversation continues from here. Get in touch with us on Twitter at TVC News NG and at Olajumoke using the hashtag Politics Tonight. We are also on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Goodbye.